I was gonna rip his heart out, I'm the best ever. I'm the most brutal and vicious and most ruthless champion there's ever been. There's no one can stop me. Lennox is a conqueror, no, I'm Alexander, he's no Alexander. I'm the best ever, there's never been anybody ruthless. I'm Sonny Liston, I'm Jack Dempsey, there's no one like me. I'm from their claw, there's no one that can match me. My style is impetuous, my defense is impregnable, and I'm just ferocious. I want your heart, I want to eat his children. Praise be to Allah.
It's amazing here what we're able to put on, but are you interested in trying to conquer America?
No. All these years, the UK fighters had to go to America, everyone had to spend a heap of money to go to Vegas. We can do it in London, around Wembley, Cardiff. It's local. We're staying right here. We're staying right here. We're staying right here.
He's kind of said, all right, cool, come and fight me in America. But the thing is with that, number one, as I said, I owe it to the fans and everyone that's been supporting me to do it here. And number two, if I go there, there's a lot of like tricks that they play in terms of like referees and judges, and that's why I want to be at home where I'm secure. So,
but there's always been that myth, really, that to crack it in boxing, you have to crack America. But I don't see why. I mean, look at what we're doing in the UK. Look at the spectacles that we're creating. He's very happy boxing in the UK. He's doing very well.
You mentioned a lot of markets there, but ever is a mighty big word. And we know, yeah, you're right, the purses are here right now, but when you make it in America, you do make it globally in that sense.
No, I think you're wrong. I think you're wrong.
You think that Anthony Joshua becomes as big a star as he could potentially be without ever fighting in the United States?
I don't think it really matters. It's a box to tick. That's what it is. If you have the right partners, then that's not a problem. If you have the right broadcast media partners, corporate sponsors, you can become a star anywhere. I do agree, America is a market that we would love to tick that box. But for us, Anthony Joshua is doing just fine in the UK.
There's more money, which is what boxing is all about, in Europe, particularly in the UK, than there is anywhere else in the world. Trust me, I'm very complimentary about American fighters, but we have the best in the world now, and we can finance it. We don't need to go to America anymore. The Americans are going to need to come to us.
I'm going to do things my way, innit? If Wilder works, we're going to make it happen. If Wilder isn't the right opponent for next year, then we'll put it back on into 2019. I'm going to take fights at the right time for me. Yeah, if it's next year or the year after or the year after, when I fight him, I'll be in a position to beat.
It's too early for Wilder to fight Joshua, really, but I would like to see it happening in 2 years' time, when they're both huge and we're talking about $1 billion income and not $100 million income.
We had an email last night from Deontay Wilder offering us $50 million apparently, and I just written back and said, look, obviously we'd be very interested in that offer, but we need to see quite a few things. Proof of funds will be nice.
We're not asking to see proof of funds.
They made us a very good offer. Some of the points in that offer were good, some were acceptable, some were unacceptable, but the basic response from AJ, Rob McCracken, fight of this magnitude, of this history, should take place in the...
No, I'm very happy, but look, worst case scenario, if AJ's unbeaten for 10 years and doesn't fight Deontay Wilder, I'll take that.
But Josh, honestly, he really isn't bothered about the money.
Welcome back to another episode of Bout the Ropes here on Keep It Real Boxing. I am your host, Cypherbox, and let's get into it. So let's start with these numbers that have come out this week for Deontay Wilder versus Dominic Breazeale, the viewership numbers in the US, Showtime viewership numbers, etc. Alright, a lot of people are being critical of this. You know, Eddie Hearn naturally would be critical of it. He is the opposite team's promoter, so you can understand why he's going to try and knock it down a little bit. And then there's a few other channels that I've been listening to and stuff like that. But kind of, you know what I'm like here on Keep It Real Boxing, yeah? I break down the facts. Right, I give you the information, but not only that, I give you the bigger picture. All right, so in terms of not just talking about Deontay Wilder's numbers for that particular fight, but also his numbers as a whole in terms of US viewership. Now, I've done this twice before, but then also what I'm going to do is which is what I've also done twice before, is compare those to Anthony Joshua's US viewership numbers. Now guys, remember, as before and as always, the links to these articles where I source the information from will be in the description of the video. Please don't forget that. So let's talk about these numbers that were released by the Nielsen Media Research Group. Right, now if you don't know who these guys are, these are the guys in America. This is the organization in America that does the auditing for live pay-per-view events, etc., what the actual numbers are and what they did. And now this group only reviews linear TV viewership. Okay. They don't really do streaming apps like DAZN. They don't monitor that. They don't have access to that, but they do the linear TV. So TV viewership we're talking about is what they research, and then they put the information out there. So here are the numbers. Okay, so Wilder versus Breazeale had a peak audience of 990,000 views. Okay, for a 2-minute and 17-second fight, it averaged an audience of 886,000 views. Right, the total live on TV, live stream, on demand, and replay Sunday views equal to 1.1 million views. Now, don't forget, I did mention this last week in last week's podcast that the fight aired at the same time, as the Western Conference Finals, basketball finals, that match had an average viewership of 7,247,000 views. Not only that, the UFC live card was also competing against Wilder was also competing against the UFC along with the basketball. So whenever Wilder goes on, I've said this before, and I will give you some more stats and facts on this, that whenever Wilder fights, he's always competing against basketball, UFC, even other boxing cards, elite level boxing cards, like he fought like the Sergey Kovalev card a few months, I think it was the last fight or the fight before that, but I'll go over the numbers with you again before. So he's always competing, unlike Anthony Joshua in the UK when he enters the ring, which he enters the ring about, what was it, 10 o'clock, half 10 at night. Alright, he's not competing against anyone other than Match of the Day. Alright, and let's be honest, you can record Match of the Day and watch it later. Do you know what I mean? You're not going to miss a live Anthony Joshua fight here in the UK if you paid good money for it. Let's be honest. Okay, so AJ doesn't really compete with anything here in the UK when he goes live in the ring, when he enters the ring through the ropes and he's being announced. Alright, Wilder does consistently. And let's not forget that American football, baseball, basketball, even golf, I think from what I understand, those are really the major sports, the more popular sports out in America anyway. Okay, so for him to compete against that and still do those kind of numbers, in my opinion, is really good. Right, a lot of people are going to be knocking this, but let's be honest, like I said, he's competing against other major sports, he's competing against the UFC at the same time. So, do you know what I mean? There's competition on at the same time as him. Let's not also forget what I talked about last week about the viral videos that went out about the knockout. There were millions upon millions views for those viral videos. Okay, so even for the Sunday replay that they were showing on Showtime, how many people were going to tune in for it when they've seen it on the internet already? Don't forget, this was only a 2-minute and 17-second long fight. Okay, it wasn't that long of a fight. Now, don't forget, some people not everyone's hardcore like myself, okay, and will sit there, watch the fighters walk to the ring, being announced, getting their instructions, their final instructions from the referee, bell sounds, and watch it right from the very first minute. Some people are going to lag with it. Some people are going to think, we can get home in time, and it's still going to be on. You know what I mean? There were some people who turned around and said that literally they were calling. I was listening to the Boxing Voice, and one guy said, I got up just to go to the toilet, and then when I came back, the fight was finished. So you got to remember that as well. How many people were able to have that time to get in there and watch the fight straight away? In America, it's a little bit different. Let's be honest. Alright, so a 2-minute 17-second fight, it wasn't on long enough for people to actually get home, sit down, right, let's watch the fight. Not everyone's a hardcore follower. But let's go back to what I was saying. On the internet, it went viral. I know my reposts on Instagram, Facebook, especially on Instagram, got thousands of views. And like I said, I'm a small page, small YouTube channel, so you can imagine how much it got over the bigger channels, the bigger social media pages, the retweets. There were millions of them, right? So the exposure was there, right? You didn't have to tune in for a Sunday replay because you already saw it on the internet. And don't forget, last week I showed you a screenshot from a channel on YouTube called the Bleacher Report, right? And that screenshot showed, like, within hours of the fight, yeah, the next day had 3.5 million views. After I did the podcast, I went back to check it again. It was at 4.1 million views. So that shows you how much exposure Deontay Wilder got from that fight, that first round knockout of Dominic Breazeale. So a lot of people who were getting into that sort of stuff saying, oh, well, you know, look at the views, the total viewership and stuff like that. Stop it, right? Now I'm going to talk about Wilder's previous numbers that he's done and how this viewership for this fight was pretty much in line, actually, considering it was a fight against Breazeale, and how many people were criticizing this fight. Oh, this fight's rubbish, this fight's this, calling Breazeale a bum. I just had some guy recently saying who I got into it with in the comment section of one of my other videos, who was saying he's an old bum and this and that about Breazeale. Yeah, okay. So for someone who's a bum and an old bum, actually those numbers did quite well because they weren't that far off or far behind his viewership numbers for Luis Ortiz. Yeah, and around about the same, if I remember right, for the second fight against Btrp. Okay, so these viewership numbers that I'm going to share with you now, yeah, going back on Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua, were both from when Wilder became a champion and Anthony Joshua became a champion, right? Okay, so let's go back, start with Wilder, all right? I've done this before, but let's go through it again, all right? Let's start back in the 26th of September 2015, his fight against Johan Duhaupas, right? That fight peaked at 2.36 million, yeah? The average viewership was 2.2 million views. The next fight after that was Arthur Spilka, all right, which peaked at 623,000 views, yeah? That fight was competing against the NFL playoffs, yeah, right? It also had an average view of 500,000, right? The NFL game that was on was the Green Bay Packers versus the Arizona Cardinals, yeah, right? And that NFL game had a viewership of 33.4 million views. So that's how many people were watching that NFL game, and that's what he was up against. The next fight after that was on the 16th of July 2016. That was Chris Arreola, right? That fight averaged at 2.54 million views. The fight after that was Gerald Washington, 25th of February 2017. That averaged at 1.76 million views and peaked at 1.86 million views. Now this is where it gets interesting, because obviously these next viewership numbers that I'm going to give you is when Wilder was competing against other major combat sports or major American sports. The Btrp rematch, 4th of November 2017, had an average viewership of 824,000 views. It peaked at 887 views. Wilder was also competing against UFC 217 on the same night in New York City. The next fight, Luis Ortiz, the 3rd of March 2018, average viewership of 1.1 million views, peaked at 1.2 million views. Yeah, he was also competing against the UFC 222 and the HBO live card, Kovalev versus Mikhailkin. Yeah, and I think, if I remember right, Dmitry Bivol and Sullivan Barrera also on that undercard. It was like a co-main event, all right? And that was also taking place, both those events were taking place at the same time as Wilder versus Ortiz in New York City. The next fight we're going to talk about is obviously Tyson Fury. We knew that was a pay-per-view event, their first pay-per-view event in America for both fighters. Let's not forget, the market's different, the price mark on that fight, those sort of pay-per-views are different. It was $80 a pop, not like here in the UK where it's 20 quid, all right? And I think it averaged at, what was it, 350,000 pay-per-view buys? And there was also reports, yeah, that there were 10 million illegal streams for that fight as well. So there was a lot of potential revenue that was lost due to illegal streaming as well. I'll have to dig out the article of that and obviously link that in the description of the video for you guys too. So including the Dominic Breazeale viewership numbers, the average viewership number, since the Johan de Hapis fight, Deontay Wilder's average viewership numbers are 10,160,000 views. So now let's go over Anthony Joshua's US viewership numbers since he debuted in the US on Showtime. And his first fight on US TV was against Charles Martin when he was challenging for that IBF title. His average viewership for that fight in America was 275,000 views. It peaked at 317,000 views. The next fight was on the 25th of June 2016 against Dominic Breazeale, his first defense of the IBF crown, and that averaged at 289,000 views. Moving on to Eric Molina. He fought him on the 10th of December 2016, and that fight was shown live and shown as a replay later on that evening in America on Showtime. And that fight had a live average viewership of 368,000 views. It peaked at 390,000 views. The replay later on in the evening averaged at 224,000 views and peaked at 244,000 views. Let's move on now to the Vladimir Klitschko fight, which you'll all agree is his biggest fight and the biggest name on his record. And that fight was obviously on the 29th of April 2017. Now that was shown across two networks because Vladimir Klitschko was with HBO in the US and Anthony Joshua was with Showtime. So Showtime got to show the fight live, okay, which averaged at 659,000 live views, and it peaked at 763,000 live views. Right, HBO showed a replay of it 5 hours later, which averaged at 738,000 views and peaked at 890,000 views. Right, now basically in the evening it peaked at 890. All right, it did an average of 738,000 views. That's Vladimir Klitschko versus Anthony Joshua on free TV in America, which did less than Wilder versus Breazeale. Let's not forget that. And those Vladimir Klitschko is a way bigger name than Breazeale. The next fight was a Carlos Takam fight. Okay, that was also shown on a replay. It did a live average viewership of 334,000 views. The replay did 309,000 views. The next fight, 31st of March 2018, was the Joseph Parker fight. Now that was a unification fight. Yeah. AJ's IBF, IBO, WBA, and Joseph Parker's WBO titles on the line. Big fight in that sense, yeah? Right? It did a live average viewership of 346,000 views. It peaked at 379,000 views. The replay averaged at 430,000 views and peaked at 483,000 views. Now the next fight after that was obviously the Alexander Povetkin fight. It was the 22nd of September 2018, right? At Wembley, but it was shown in America on DAZN. This is when his deal started with DAZN. Now that fight was free to everyone. You could all watch it, and you could watch it because DAZN have archived libraries, etc. If you didn't watch the fight live, you could watch it whenever you wanted on a replay. That's what they offer you, yeah? Complete access anytime, any place, anywhere, right? Within the US, of course, all right? Because obviously it will be restricted in other countries and stuff like that. But it was free. It was the first fight card DAZN were putting out their boxing fight card, all right? You didn't have to pay for it. You would have to sign up to DAZN, and then you could have cancelled right after that, yeah? No one had to pay nothing. You didn't have to pay a cable service charge, cable TV service charge, a satellite TV charge, a streaming charge, nothing. It was completely free to all, right? DAZN never released those numbers. Okay, rumor has it, I heard it from Dillian White once and a few other people, etc. and stuff like that. That viewership for that fight did something like 15 to 16,000 from what I understand. But again, rumor has it. I can't confirm or deny that. And DAZN apparently go by the whole policy that they don't release their subscription numbers and they don't release their viewership numbers. But funny enough, the other week they released the Canelo versus Jacobs viewership numbers. And over 8 territories, that fight, Canelo versus Jacobs, did 1.2 million views. And in the US, it did 600,000 views. Now, I reviewed this last week. And if you want to hear my thoughts on that, go and check out last week's podcast. Okay, but here's my point. A lot of people, they released those information. Now, a lot of people are going to say, well, if you read the article that gave that information out, it would say that a source close to DAZN revealed, right? And people are going to make excuses like someone leaked information. No. DAZN got one of their team members to release that information, right? If they say a source close to DAZN leaked that information, then the next fight, if it doesn't do as well, then they can say, well, the last fight, that information was leaked. You know, we don't know who did it, but there's someone close to us leaked that information to the media. All right? But in actual fact, that was DAZN releasing that figure because they were proud of that number. So it shows that all this excuse that, oh, we don't reveal our viewership numbers, our subscription numbers, is nonsense. It's right now, and I understand that they only started last September, right? Okay, they're still building and stuff like that, okay? And they haven't got the subscription numbers quite just yet, and they haven't got the viewership just yet, right? It's no secret about it, okay? But my point is, I can't really talk about the Alexander Povetkin numbers because guess what? They never released them, and it'll be interesting to see if they release these numbers between Anthony Joshua versus against Andy Ruiz Jr. when that fight happens. It'll be interesting to see what the numbers are as well. Yeah, and I hope AJ does well with him. This is not me knocking Anthony Joshua. I hope he, unlike other people who want to see Wilder do badly and all this sort of stuff, I don't care. Yeah, if AJ does good DAZN numbers against Andy Ruiz, that's more hype for the Wilder fight, for him and Wilder. So it adds more to it. Yeah. So when we do finally get to see that fight, God knows when we're going to see it. I don't know. Yeah, but when we do finally see that fight, there'll be enough hype behind it, and it will hopefully draw enough interest of casual and non-existing boxing fans to join in and watch the fight as well. So, but like I said, it would still be interesting. So with the numbers I do have for Anthony Joshua, his average viewership in the US total is 3,380,000 views. Okay. So where people are saying that the numbers for Wilder versus Breazeale were shocking, etc., appalling, terrible, all these things that I'm hearing, here on Keep It Real Boxing, I give you not just the actual information for that particular fight, but I give you the biggest picture, the broader scope. Alright? And when you think about it, when you hear that Wilder versus Breazeale did better than Anthony Joshua versus Vladimir Klitschko, right? In the US, it says it all in it. It says everything about Deontay Wilder's drawing power, yeah, in the US, in terms of his US viewership. People tune in to watch him fight way more than they tune in to watch Anthony Joshua in the US. Facts are facts. Okay, like I said, let me give you the big example. The biggest name on Anthony Joshua's record, I said this earlier, Vladimir Klitschko. Right, they showed it live on Showtime. They repeated it 5 hours later on HBO. Yeah, the average viewership on Showtime was 659,000 views, sorry. And 5 hours later on HBO, when it was replayed, it had an average viewership of 738,000 views. How much did Dominic Breazeale versus Deontay Wilder versus Dominic Breazeale have in terms of an average viewership? 886,000 views. Says it all really, doesn't it, guys? Yeah, so stop with the nonsense, stop with all the politics, the propaganda and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, give the facts, guys. Right, those numbers, Dominic Breazeale versus Deontay Wilder versus Dominic Breazeale, those numbers were in line and weren't that bad compared to the fact that his last fight against his last free fight on TV, because the Fury fight was pay-per-view, his last free fight on TV was Luis Ortiz, right? And that had an average viewership of 1.1 million views. And I remember I said he was competing against UFC 222 and Kovalev versus Mikhailkin, which had Bivol and Sullivan Barrera on the undercard as well. Right, the Bermane Stavernster fight averaged at 4,000 views, and that was competing against the UFC 217 live in New York. So actually those numbers are good, and good solid numbers from Deontay Wilder. Let's not forget also, all the videos went viral on the internet. Millions upon millions of views for his fights. For his fight against Dominic Breazeale, his knockout. So stop all the nonsense. They were good numbers, solid numbers, and considering all these people saying no one wants to see him fight that Breazeale, really good numbers from Deontay Wilder, yeah. Averaged pretty well compared to his fight against Luis Ortiz, yeah. And let's not forget, the fight against Breazeale, he was also competing against a major basketball game that was going on, and a UFC card on the same night as well again. Says it all. And remember guys, all the links to those articles for that information that I just presented to you can be found in the description of this video. Okay, so let's move on to this next topic, which is still around AJ and Deontay Wilder. And I'm hearing a lot of videos, a lot of talks where people are saying that, you know, I hope Deontay Wilder goes to the AJ fight. Deontay Wilder has to go to the AJ fight. Why won't he go to the AJ fight? All this sort of stuff, etc, etc. This shouldn't take me too long to go through, guys, yeah? But I'm going to play you a bit of audio from when Anthony Joshua was recently on the Breakfast Club out in New York, and what he had to say when he was on the Breakfast Club out in New York. As you know, big breakfast show. I mean, is it the biggest one in New York? I'm not too sure, or like in terms of radio. But I'm going to play you a bit of audio, and then I'm going to give you my thoughts on the back of that.
So in my 16th fight, I'm just on stats and facts. Like, I don't know why people, if I was from the States, you know, you guys have Hollywood, the biggest breakfast shows, music. So I feel like where I'm from, it's like just tagging along to what you guys are doing over here. So maybe I just feel like I don't get the look in I deserve, but that's why we're here now, to kind of come to the biggest platforms and speak about what we do. So
I had to deal with Sky Sports. They wanted me to come over and commentate for them. And I told them I come on one condition. And the terms was I get in the ring with Joshua at the end of the night.
So we talked about the Sky Sports thing. So I said the only time I've let someone in the ring after the fight is when I signed the deal. So Klitschko got in the ring with me because we had the deal signed. It was like, let's get him in the ring after I win. And now we promote the fight, saying the date's set, the fight's set. Wilder wanted to come without signing no contract. I said, why are you getting in the ring? This ain't about building profiles or hype. If you're serious and you want to get in the ring, let the world know we've got a fight. If you're not serious and you haven't signed the fight, there's no need to get in the ring.
You know, a couple of days later, I get a phone call from my manager. He was like saying that ain't gonna be able to happen because Joshua talking about upping the security on me. I even heard about restraining orders and stuff, saying he don't want to hype the fight, you know, for what? And you know, and it's
no, it's kind of true, but no restraining orders. I'm not really into like, hey, up the security. Wilder's not coming anyway, so why am I worrying about upping the security? We're just a situation where sign the contract. It's a good fight to promote. Get in the ring. We can talk till the cows come home. So they say, Wilder, why are you over here? We're trying to negotiate a fight. Yeah. That makes sense. So that was just my view on that situation. But his point is 75% right.
So here's my take on it. That was Anthony Joshua on the Breakfast Club, explaining why he wouldn't let Deontay Wilder in the ring last year when Sky invited him to be a commentator and to be ringside at the fight. Wilder said, I'll come providing you let me in the ring with Anthony Joshua so we can talk face to face in front of the audience, in front of the public. Now, Anthony Joshua, you just heard him there saying that I'd never let a fighter in the ring unless I've signed the fight. So I let Vladimir Klitschko in the ring because I signed the fight with Vladimir Klitschko, and that was going to be my next fight. So we allowed him in the ring and we announced it. Done deal. You know, you heard what he just said there. He said, why am I going to let Wilder in the ring, you know, when there's no fight? Why am I going to create all this hype? And this ain't about raising profiles, etc. You know, if you're serious, sign the contract and then I'll let you in the ring and we could talk till the cows come home. Yeah, but if you're not going to sign the contract, then there's no point bringing you in, because they're going to say, Wilder, why are you here? Oh, we're here to negotiate a fight. You heard what he just said there. So why is it now Sky Sports, Eddie Hearn and Anthony Joshua are all pushing, and DAZN are all pushing for Wilder to be ringside for Joshua versus Ruiz? Has a 50-50 offer been sent? Look, listen, I've said this before. I've got no problem with AJ being the A side 60-40 split. But Deontay Wilder wants a 50-50 split, and I believe he's getting closer and closer to that now, yeah? The tide is turning. Okay? But my point is, have you sent a contract? Or sorry, have you sent an offer? Was that offer accepted? Has the contract been signed? Right? Because that's the only reason Wilder needs to turn up to the fight then, according to Anthony Joshua. He doesn't allow people in the ring unless a contract's been signed for the fight, and no contract's been signed. So if Wilder turns up to the Andy Ruiz fight, and he goes in the ring, and then DAZN interview him and say, what are you doing here, Deontay? And he says, oh, we're going to be here to try and negotiate a fight. Isn't that what Anthony Joshua just said? Listen, stop all the double standards. Yeah? All you guys out there. You're talking about, you're criticising Wilder, saying that, he's not going to turn up, look at him, he's chicken, he's running and all that sort of stuff. But a few months ago, Anthony Joshua said he didn't want to let him in the ring unless a contract had been signed, that the fight was on. And again, no contract, no offer has been sent, no offer has been accepted, no contract has been sent, no contract for the fight has been signed, nothing's official. So why are you asking Deontay Wilder to be ringside and asking him to step into the ring after your fight with Andy Ruiz? Should you beat Andy Ruiz, of course, which he should, to be honest with you. Do you get what I mean? It doesn't make sense to me. You know what this is? This is DAZN, DAZN's back's against the wall a little bit, yeah, right? And I know they're new kids on the block, they're still building, but they are bleeding money, right? It's why, if you look at, what's his name, Joe Markowski of DAZN, he told the Boxing Voice that they had no interest in the AJ versus Dillian Whyte fight. That's why that was thrown out the window, and they wanted the Jarrell Miller fight, and they wanted that to be AJ. They said to her, we want AJ in the US. We need to build him in the US so we can start making money and getting subscribers to our platform. All right. DAZN need AJ in the US, but the problem is now, who does AJ fight in the US after Ruiz? Ortiz is now going to fight Breazeale next. Yeah, they've lined up Nowacki after that, from what I understand. Potentially, we got Tyson Fury and Wilder the rematch next year. Right? Team Wilder's team has said, all right, fine, you didn't want to fight till 2020, you messed us around. We're going to make plans and go ahead, and then we're going to build our profile. We're going to continue building our profile. We're going to continue building on this momentum we've already built. Yeah, and we're going to put ourselves in a position where when we come to the table, you cannot deny us 50-50. But now, who does AJ fight in the US? Pulev? Does that fight sell in the US? Don't know. Who's his other mandatory? Usyk, who's leapfrogging Dillian Whyte in the WBO rankings. Even though Dillian Whyte is #1 ranked by the WBO, Usyk's going to leapfrog him and become his mandatory for his WBO belt. You know, who does he fight? You know, the Povetkin fight, how well did that do in the UK? You know, do those fights against Pulev and Usyk do well in the UK? You know, don't know. But it doesn't seem like they're going to be fights in the UK. They're trying to avoid any more fights in the UK because DAZN is saying, no, we want Joshua here in the US fighting from now on. So they're now under pressure, and now they're turning around and saying, oh, you know, and Sky have to go along with this as well, because Sky are like, because they know Eddie Hearn's got to appease DAZN too. So now they're all pushing suddenly, oh, come to the fight, be ringside, will you be there? Step into the ring. Talk face to face with Anthony Joshua. But you just said a few months ago you didn't want all that hype because no contract had been signed. No fight was official. See what I mean? Double standards. Look, AJ has been a very big fish in a very small pond for a long time, which is the UK boxing market. He's now in the US market. These are the big leagues when it comes to the US market. Yeah, from what I understand, like the UK is 1/3 of the size of the state of Texas. So that gives you the scale. We've got like what, 68 million living in this country. They've got like 325 million people living in that country. It's the biggest consumer market in the world, right? And it's a market that's extremely demanding when it comes to boxing. Yeah, fights against Pulev, against Usyk are not going to do well in America. They want the big fights all the time. So, do you know what I mean? If he can't fight Wilder next, fine. Who does he fight after that? Where do those fights take place? Will Eddie Hearn say, well, we're going to take it back to the UK for now, because we can't bring a credible name to the US market for Anthony Joshua to fight in the US again? But the main point is that my main point here is that you're saying you want Wilder ringside for the Ruiz fight now, but a few months ago you were saying we don't want all that hype unless a contract's been signed. But a contract hasn't been signed, so why should Wilder go to the Ruiz fight now? Doesn't make sense. Let's move on to Tyson Fury. Oh god, Tyson Fury has been very vocal recently in the run up to his fight with Mark Schwarz, or whatever his name is. Let's start. Where should we start? Let's start with his original comments. Yeah, his first comments that I picked up on, where he said, "Wilder can't run from me forever." Now, as you know, they fought each other, back last year, end of last year, and it was a controversial draw for the two fighters. Yes, on the scorecards, I believe Tyson Fury won the fight, but I also believe that it shouldn't have gone to the scorecards because the referee f***ed up the count. And I kind of proved that when I did my Fight Night Rewind video on it, where I reviewed the fight. And I used fan footage from the stadium, clear footage where you could see the count and everything that was going on in the ring at the time, and where the referee screwed it all up, basically. So let's make this short and sweet, right? He says Wilder can't run for me forever, when actually we all know it was him doing the running. Okay? When they were negotiating the rematch, 50-50 was on the table in terms of a purse split for the fight. Frank Warren confirmed this. Even Tyson Fury confirmed this. They said there were other details they were thrashing out, which secretly meant what they meant back then was we've got a little deal that might be going on with ESPN. Alright? Then he turns around and says, Tyson Fury last week, that Wilder already had 3 fights planned. That's why the fight didn't happen, and he's claiming he's running for him. But he's talking about the fights with Luis Ortiz and Adam Nowacki. But those fights were only starting to be planned and arranged once Fury pulled out of the rematch with Deontay Wilder, because he got his deal with ESPN. Now everyone's claiming it's an £80 million pound deal, which is $100 million roughly. Apparently Bob Arum has denied that on numerous occasions, that it's not that much money, but still, whatever the money is, he thought it was good enough and he went with it. Right, but I also feel that it was an opportunity to create an excuse as to why not to get into the ring with Deontay Wilder again. Yeah, Fury can outbox Wilder all night long, probably, yeah? But like Wilder said, he only needs 12 seconds. Fury needs 12 rounds to beat me. I need 12 seconds because of the power he possesses. Just like he showed against Dominic Breazeale this weekend gone. So we know full well, and Fury even said it himself, he was knocked unconscious. He can't remember what happened in the ring. His family was fearing for his life, all that stuff, yeah? He even looked at the replay, he said, he goes, I have no idea how I got up from that, etc. I don't remember the incident. Deontay Wilder hits really hard, etc, etc. Right? He don't want any of it. Let's be honest. He wants a couple of tune-ups. He wants to probably work on a few things. Yeah, maybe he hopes Wilder loses in that time and then he doesn't have to fight him again. So Tyson Fury needs to stop all this nonsense. He's kind of clout chasing. He is clout chasing. Right? His fight against Mark Schwarz is not going to do well. No one knows who the guy is. Yeah? It's pay-per-view here in the UK. I ain't paying for that. I'm telling you now. I am not paying for that. I am not paying for that fight. And in America, it's on, is it on ESPN Plus? It's on ESPN. It's not going to be on TV for free, right? Free view, right? But he knows no one's going to tune into that fight because of the amount of criticisms he's getting for it. So what's the best thing to do? Start clout chasing on the back of Deontay Wilder's success from this weekend and start talking all this nonsense, yeah? Fury needs to just shut it. Let's be honest, yeah? Fury needs to take care of his next fight and then talk to Wilder about a rematch, which apparently the teams are talking about, but they're saying not till next year. So I don't know what he's talking about, this whole Wilder's running from, because Wilder ain't running from you. He wanted to settle the business with you before he moved on to his next opponents. So again, Tyson Fury talking nonsense. We all know the facts. His team revealed the facts. There was 50-50 on the table. You didn't take it because you took the ESPN deal. And that crashed the potential rematch between Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder. Simple as that. Oh, let's go back over a little bit around AJ and Wilder a little bit. I forgot to mention Eddie Hearn. Let me play you what Eddie Hearn thought of Deontay Wilder's performance versus Dominic Breazeale last weekend, Saturday night.
I thought it was fantastic. I thought he did exactly what heavyweight should do, which is go in there and knock people out. I thought it was exciting. I mean, he got wobbled himself earlier on in the round, and that's what he does. He's erratic, he's explosive, he's vulnerable, but he's extremely powerful and extremely dangerous. And that's what people love to watch. People love to watch heavyweights flatten heavyweights, and Wilder does that very well. So, you know, I have to give props to him and say that it was a good performance. You know, obviously, you got AJ beat Breazeale in 7 rounds, like 6 fights ago in his 17th fight, and Wilder cleaned him out in a round. So it's kind of like laying down the gauntlet. Wilder went in there, bosh, 1 round, all over, and he's gone, okay, AJ, over to you, mate. Madison Square Gardens, let's see what you got. And now it's on AJ. Next week at the Garden, the pressure's on him to put in a performance that makes people say, he's an animal.
You heard it from Eddie himself. That puts the pressure on Anthony Joshua to put on a performance for people to say, he's an animal. I mean, that's all I've really got to say when it comes to the whole AJ Wilder and Fury saga. That's, you know, the stories from last week since Wilder's win and what everyone's been saying and what's been put out there publicly in reports and articles and YouTube videos, etc. Yeah, so I've got to move on now, yeah, to a few smaller stories from last week that I kind of want to touch on. So here's the first one. All right, quickly want to go through this one. This is Virgil Hunter. He was quoted to say that he'd like to see Amir Khan commit to camps between fights and work on his weaknesses to see if his skill sets are gone or if he is just letting them deteriorate. All right, he's never practiced between fights. He trains hard for 10 weeks, but it's not enough. So basically what he's saying is that when there isn't a fight on, he wants Amir Khan in the gym with him so they can work on things. And it's a little bit hard with Amir Khan living in the UK here in Bolton, and he's out there in, I think, is it Oakland, out in the US. All right, my take on this, yes, Virgil Hunter is right. You know, Amir Khan probably needs to show a bit more commitment if he's really serious about becoming a world champion again. You know, we saw what happened in his last fight. He quit. I don't care what anyone said, he did quit, right, against Terence Crawford. But I said as well, you know, I've been saying since his comeback, his skill sets have diminished. Yeah, this is a guy who relies on explosiveness, yeah, and speed. And I feel that's starting to deteriorate when it comes to Amir Khan. That accuracy he used to have, the strength in his legs aren't there anymore, in my opinion. Personally, I think he should hang him up and retire. He's done, you know, has some great achievements in boxing. I'm not trying to knock the guy, but I personally think he's done too many hard fights, too many tough fights where he's been knocked out. You know, he's had tough fights which he's won as well, and his body's now starting to fail him, just like David Haye. David Haye's body started to fail him. We saw it against Tony Bellew. We saw that with the likes of Roy Jones Jr. years and years ago. You know, once these types of fighters, you know, they rely on their speed and their explosiveness, right? Once that starts to diminish, you know, that's when it all starts going downhill. And let's be honest, you know, does anyone really want to watch Amir Khan now against Kell Brook? Not really. And, you know, Kell Brook himself, he's been inactive. He can't decide whether he's going to be at 154 or 147. So I do actually agree with Virgil Hunter on that one, to be honest with you. But at the same time, I understand the dilemma when it comes to Amir Khan. His family's here in Bolton. He's very family orientated, with not just his wife and his children, but his family, immediate family and stuff like that. So he doesn't like to be away from them for long periods of time. But at the same time, you have to understand, as a fighter, that's the sacrifice you have to make. I remember Prince Nassim Hamid talking about it, you know, before he retired, and he was saying, you know, the Barrera fight where he lost badly, you know, it wasn't his greatest performance, but also Manuel Stewart said he never trained properly for that fight, you know, because he said, you know, being away from my family all the time for long periods of time, I just didn't enjoy it anymore. So I think he had one more fight after that, and then he packed it in. So maybe that's the case for Amir Khan, you know, either that or get a trainer in the UK who can help him out and he can consistently train with, even in between fights. But I do agree with what Virgil Hunter's saying there. Listen, another thing I want to point out is that I don't know if Virgil Hunter is the right man for the job, to be honest with you. Yeah, we saw Virgil Hunter against, he was in Dominic Breazeale's corner this weekend, you know, and even the Terence Crawford fight. Look, other than Andre Ward, I've not really seen Virgil Hunter have a lot of success with a lot of other fighters. You know, he's had a lot of success with Andre Ward. You know, Andre Ward accomplished great things, no doubt about it. But with other fighters, Virgil Hunter hasn't had that same level of success. It's same like with Freddie Roach. How much do I really rate Freddie Roach as a trainer? Had great success with Manny Pacquiao, but when you look at other fighters, Freddie Roach has trained, he's not had a lot of success with those fighters, you know. So I question how good of a trainer Virgil Hunter is, to be honest with you. And from what I understand, Virgil Hunter has never fought professionally, and I don't believe he's fought at a amateur level either. So is he the right man for the job? So, you know, I think Amir Khan's got a lot to think about. Eddie Hearn has told IFL TV that they've told it at WBC they'll accept Tyson Fury versus Dillian Whyte for the Diamond Belt, resolution being finalised now, but Hearn expects Rivas to be for the interim title, with Fury ordered next. He remains sceptical over whether Fury will accept. Look, here's my take on it, right? So we know Dillian Whyte and his complaints with his mandatory position or the mandatory position for Deontay Wilder's WBC belt. I've proven already a couple of weeks ago that he belongs exactly where he should be when it comes to that, right? Okay, but moan, that's all we hear from Dillian Whyte. He's had many opportunities for world title shots. He turned down a final eliminator against Pulev because they won the purse bid and he had to go to Bulgaria, even though he says he'll go anywhere, anytime to fight anyone. But then he doesn't back it up, right? You know, the WBO, he's not on their back about that he's their number one contender, but yet they're going to make Usyk, who hasn't even had a fight at heavyweight yet, who's coming up from cruiserweight, as the mandatory challenger to Anthony Joshua's WBO belt. Anthony Joshua made him his biggest payday offer to fight him at Wembley in April. Dillian Whyte turned it down. You know, the WBC gave him a final eliminator fight against Luis Ortiz. He turned it down, you know, so he's had multiple opportunities. Tyson Fury, on the other hand, is saying that he'll fight Dillian Whyte, but he wants the diamond belt on the line. Why? I have no idea. It has no relevance to anything. It's just a trophy belt. It has no meaning to it whatsoever, that diamond belt. But he's saying that's what he wants on the line, okay? Dillian Whyte turned around. They both said it on social media, and Dillian Whyte turned around and said, let's go. I'm ready for that. You know, he's saying, Eddie Hearn, that is saying that he's skeptical as to whether Tyson Fury will step up to the plate. Now, I agree with that, because Tyson Fury says a lot of things, but then sometimes he doesn't back it up. But the same is, you could be skeptical about Dillian Whyte, as I've already just, you know, stated to you guys, that he has a habit of saying a lot of things, but never following up and never stepping up to the plate. So far as I'm concerned, you know, they both talk the talk. Let's see if they walk the walk. But I think, in my personal opinion, this fight is highly unlikely. But if it does happen, I would love it. Sun reporter Colin Hart says boxing fans should boycott Joshua and Fury fast after being charged $19.95 to watch them fight Bum of the Month. Look, I don't know about bum, because I don't like to call in fighters bums, because they do go in the ring and put their lives on the line and their health, of course. So I don't really like using that term. But look, here's my take on it. definitely not paying for Tyson Fury versus Tom Schwarz, is it? Or Mark Schwarz? I think I called him Mark Schwarz earlier on. See what I mean? No one really knows who this guy is. And personally, it's not a fight that really interests me, so I'm not going to pay $19.95 for it to view it. Joshua versus Ruiz Jr. Haven't made my mind up yet. Yeah, I mean, a few weeks ago I said I wasn't going to pay for it. I haven't quite decided yet. Look, I don't think any of these fights are pay-per-view worthy, by the way. I do agree with that. The Tyson Fury fight is definitely not pay-per-view worthy here in the UK. Same with the Anthony Joshua fight. Same with the Dillian White fight versus Rivas. But if I was going to definitely spend my money on one of those fights, it would probably be Dillian White versus Rivas. Yeah, I think that's the most competitive fight out of all of those ones. Like I said, I haven't undecided with the AJ fight just yet. I'm going to probably leave that right to the last minute. But I'm definitely not paying for that Tyson Fury fight against Tom Schwarz or whatever his name is. Alright? But I do see where he's coming from. But the likelihood that boxing fans are going to boycott these fights, I don't see that happening. But I do believe that boxing fans need to take a bit of a stand when it comes to these pay-per-views. Yes, people talk about how they get ripped off in the US. We're getting ripped off in the UK at the moment. None of those fights are pay-per-view worthy. I've said that before. None of them are. And people are just giving up their hard-earned cash here in the UK. We are being exploited out here in the UK when it comes to boxing on pay-per-view, on Sky, on box office, BT box office, Sky box office, whatever. And at some point I think boxing fans need to just say, no, we're not going to accept these fights anymore, we're not paying for them. If you did that, then you would pressure the promoters into making the fights that you want to see. But unfortunately, especially the casual fans, they will tune into those fights still. I can guarantee you it. Probably the hardcore fans will probably stay away and think, I'm not going to give up my cash for those fights. But look, we'll have to see what happens, but I guarantee you people are still going to tune in. Okay, guys, so that's it for me this week. Listen, a lot of you probably thinking, how come you're not talking about Manny Pacquiao versus Keith Thurman? I am going to talk about it, guys. I'm going to talk about the whole build-up, the press conferences, what Keith Thurman's been saying to Manny Pacquiao when I do the preview video for that fight, and it will be on my series Fight Night Preview. Look out for that video, and I'm going to talk about that as a whole, and then I'm going to talk about who I think is going to win the fight and all the strategies and all that sort of stuff in that video. I'm not going to talk about it here on Bout the Ropes this week. Alright, but guys, that's all I got for you this week. Let me know what you think. Leave a comment, hate, like, whatever you wish to do. Yeah, share the video. Yeah, subscribe, of course. And until next time, this is Cypherbox reminding you to keep it real.
I was gonna rip his heart out, I'm the best ever. I'm the most brutal and vicious and most ruthless champion there's ever been. There's no one can stop me. Lynx is a conqueror, no, I'm Alexander, he's no Alexander. I'm the best ever, there's never been anybody ruthless. I'm Sonny Liston, I'm Jack Dempsey, there's no one like me. I'm from Nairclaw, there's no one that can match me. My style is impetuous, my defense is impregnable, and I'm just ferocious. I want your heart, I wanna eat his children. Praise be to Allah.